you can go ahead and buy the gear from the pinnacle bosses that your build cannot do for some reason. Should that be possible? In my opinion, no. I think that is very bad game design that makes people quit because you lose the motivation, purpose, whatever, but how should I say it? You lose the, I guess, purpose of the game when you can buy the gear. It's fine to be able to buy some gear to supplement, until you get that unique that you want, to try out something. So it's like, let's say you're trying a lightning spell and you want to see if it's going to be very good. So you want to buy items that have like lightning damage, the same as you have, let's say, fire damage, because you're just trying to switch from fire to lightning. And you want to see if this would work. So you buy a bunch of lightning damage, approximately the same thing as you have fire damage, and see if it actually works, like if it scales with the same, something like that, right? Or let's say you want movement speed and like you don't have whatever, right? So it's like some items, sure, also they can supplement your build, but the best items, the build making items, I don't know if you should be able to buy them. I feel like that cheapens the game. I feel like once you do, it's the same as like once you stop blowing up the map, you're gonna have fun for about like a couple hours, and then you'll be like, well, I'm just blowing up the maps right now. Like the game is kind of over. It's very similar feeling when you are able to buy gear, right? So I think there should be limitations to buying gear, but again, that is something that's like the conversation goes back and forth on that one. I know a lot of people like being able to buy everything. I think, honestly, people who play SSF should by default have like 200% magic find. Based on how the game is now. In my opinion, they shouldn't have it, but the way the game is now, you're kind of stupid to play SSF when Trade League exists, because the game clearly is designed around Trade League. Even though some people can say that it's like, oh, well, SSF is how the game feels like how the game is meant to be played. I very disagree. You can still make the same OP builds that you can make in Trade League, but they will just be slightly less performing because you just don't have the cream of the crop items. They will still do pretty much the same thing though. You will just be like 2 times slower, let's say. So it's like, I don't think the game is designed around SSF. I think the game is actually designed around Trade League. And that is proof by there being probably like 10x less drops than there's supposed to be, at least for crafting purposes.
People will literally say comments like that and then be like, but no, the game definitely should be easy mode. I don't get it. Like, how do you have an opinion where you definitely quit the game once it gets too easy, but also the game should also be really easy so you can quit really early? Do you want to play the game or not?
No.
The economy gets completely wrecked by broken builds, farming the game with no risk.
People who make those comments at that point don't want to play the game anymore. Like, they got to a point where it's like the game was so slow, not rewarding, that they stopped making any progress. So they're already like on their way out. So in their minds, like, well, if I could buy these things, then I would at least play for another like couple hours before I quit. Like, they're already on the way out regardless. They were already not interested in the game as it is.
Now, I understand a lot of people are like, no, don't nerf me. Okay, I get that. But if we're trying to have a challenging game like Path of Exile 2, if we're trying to have a challenging game with difficult bosses that drop good loot, a challenging late game and all that, we can't just let builds that are completely out of line, and there should be a line. The devs should put a line in the sand. It should take 1 to 3 minutes to kill a boss. If you kill him in 1 minute, you should be very squishy, and you should be at very much risk of dying. If you kill them in 3 minutes, you should be very tanky, and you should have a low risk of dying. Now, maybe that means everyone goes for the tanky builds, but you get the idea, right? They should put that line in the sand, and they should say, unless you outgear the boss, unless you outlevel the boss, here's our line. And if people are breaking that line, they have to put their foot down, and they need to stop that.
100% agree.
Okay. Devs, and this is why I kind of settle this for those of you who disagree with nerfs. The devs try to balance against the best builds, you know they do, making the game feel like ass.
Yeah. So if they're not, this is what I said earlier, if they're not gonna nerf the cream, like the top builds, they will balance the game around the top builds. Therefore, everyone who doesn't use a top build is just gonna have like a completely garbage time in the game. Like they're just not gonna have any fun. They will not be progressing anything because they would need to play the meta. And somebody made this comment, and it's just so stupid. It's like the meta is the meta because that is what's good. If you're not good enough to make such a good build, then maybe you should just follow the meta guide. That is such a dumb fucking take. That just means that the game is designed around meta, and it will keep being designed around meta, right? Obviously, there should be like builds that like just don't work. Like okay, sure, fine, but there shouldn't be a meta of like three builds that are just completely demolishing the fucking game, where and like you have like the 3 builds up here, then you have the rest of the builds are down here, and then you have like the shitty builds that are like you can't even see them, they're like on the floor right now. Okay, bring them closer together. Like the middle of the pack and the top should not be that far apart. Okay, like I said, with my comparison to like Guild Wars 2, you have the Reaper that is like easy to play, does a lot of damage. Then you have the Weaver that, you know, very hard to play, and you know, it should do more damage than the Reaper because it's easy to play. But the sacrifice is being able to like being good at that build. Okay, making a build that is hard to play, hard to gear for, all that stuff, but it is rewarding by doing a lot, like substantially more damage, is the goal. Not having all of the stupid builds AoE like crazy, do the most damage, and there's absolutely nothing involved in making them work, which is what the meta is. Most of the time, that is the meta. In pretty much every fucking PoE build, the meta is how can I click less buttons to get more damage. That is so stupid. And balancing the game around that and designing the game around that makes for a very bad game. It's like, yes, and I'm calling PoE 1 a bad game. I appreciate that it has all that shit, but it is a bad game. Endgame is fucking dog shit.
Because the best builds are so broken, the devs need to balance against it to try to keep some challenge into those builds.
And the numbers
so then the game feels like ass. Because the devs try to kill the best builds with bullshit. The late game is nothing but bullshit to try to kill people who are playing AoE spark spam shit, which makes it feel awful for everyone else. Yep. There are so many death explosions, AoE spam, off-map attacks. The devs will try any single way to kill a player who can just screen wipe every single mob in the game. It makes me wonder, were the league mechanics designed like this to try to kill builds like that? Because I can think of no other way that every single league mechanic becomes about spawning waves of enemies directly on top of you that you can't AoE before they reach you. The only way they would do that is if they were balancing the game on these bullshit builds. But is that fun? Is that interesting? No, of course not. The game becomes significantly less interesting once you realize everything's out the window. It's about holding left click for as long as you can. And then you hold that left click button, and your eyes glaze over, and you go, yay, AoE, loot. But none of your loot is good. Of course it's not, because if your loot was good, you'd quit the game, which the devs have said, which is why loot is bad. Okay, so I guess when the best builds screen wipe every 1 second, you have to balance like this. Yes, it's really not fun playing off meta right now. I don't know if you guys have noticed this. Go to late game maps. Developers, please, I beg you, go to late game maps, play some off meta build. I implore you, I beg of you, go to late game maps and play an off meta build. You will very, very quickly hate it. It is very much not fun. Playing an off meta build without energy shield, without an AoE ability that can clear the entire screen and beyond every 1 second, playing even an underpowered build, you will have no fun. I've tried a lot of them. They are not fun. You get to maps and you don't want to play anymore. That's the best way to describe it. You get to maps and you go, yeah, fuck that. And that's it. That is PoE 2 campaign versus maps. To finish with this thought for a second, because Darth Microtransactions, you are a very smart man, and this is a very good question. Let's look at the answer to that, because this kind of goes into devs try to kill the best builds with bullshit.
Right, they're gonna crush through and destroy it. Then you have the people that are like kind of learning the game, getting into the game, that might like get stuck and lost. How do you feel about the one pour though? Then now that the game has been out of the wild, does the one pour though feel like it's widening that gap and punishing players who maybe are learning the game too much? But it's the people who are going to blast regardless. It doesn't matter because they're not going to be dying consistently in maps. So how do you feel about one pour though state of mapping currently, as well as XP loss still being fairly significant, even though in the previous interview was stated that you don't feel like you need to have the XP loss as much, considering you do have that one pour though defense. Right. We're in a state where we currently have both of them.
So first of all, we did discuss quite a lot about whether or not we want to go back on one portal or not, and I think that it comes down to the fact that
yeah, okay. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, everybody. Give me your thoughts, give me your feelings. Please like and subscribe. And as always, I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
All right, that was the video. What is this? Man spies on his hot neighbor, then goes to clap. Movie recap. Guess I know what I'm watching. No, as that is the video. Only you never knew you needed. Oh my god, what is that? I always find these like weird as builds about some weapon. I was like, oh my god, that's so cool. Let me go and try it. Honestly, I think Warframe is probably the best ARPG on the market. It's not even an ARPG, but it's pretty damn close to it. Anyways, that is the video. Tell me in the comments what you think. Downvote the shit out of it, because I know how much you want to defend mapping, the worst fucking thing in any ARPG right now. And by the way, mapping is Rifts. Mapping is Greater Rifts. Mapping is literally Diablo 3. And Diablo 4, okay? For all intents and purposes, it is the exact same garbage, with its little events in between. If Diablo 3 in the Rifts, you had little events, aside from like a mass spawn of goblins, it would be maps. Like, it would literally just be a copy, like maps and the Rifts are the exact same thing. So, yeah, let me know what you think. Enjoy hating. I will be arguing with you a lot in the comments. Peace.